Many gamers outside of Japan have expressed the opinion that a big company is trying to crush a small one regarding Nintendo's lawsuit against Pocketpair. However, the issue isn't that simple. To briefly summarize my opinion, there are three conditions that tend to lead to a lawsuit: excessive imitation, a significant amount of sales, and the lack of respect. If imitation were allowed without any limits, the gaming industry could face another decline similar to what happened in 1983. Moreover, debating which patents were infringed is pointless. That's not the core of the issue. In Japan, many people criticize Pocketpair and support Nintendo. So why is there such a difference in perception between overseas and Japan? There are three main factors: the language barrier, cultural differences, and the lack of deeper understanding. A lot of information on this matter is only accessible in Japanese. As a Japanese game developer, I want to share this information with all of you guys. First, the criticism that it's ridiculous to sue 8 months after the release is off the mark. I guess Nintendo and the Pokemon Company began taking action immediately after the release of Palworld. They had to prepare extensively and work quickly, which led to the timing of this lawsuit. Let's take a look at the lawsuit between Nintendo and Colorpool. This case arose because Colorpool claimed that patented technology owned by Nintendo was their original invention, not because of any plagiarism issue. The lawsuit happened because Colorpool was attempting to prevent the technology, which should be available to everyone, from being used by others. Nintendo is generally tolerant of other companies using its patented technologies. The information shown in this diagram is based only on officially released data. First, before filing the lawsuit in January 2018, Nintendo took at least 2 actions. That's right, Nintendo doesn't file lawsuit right away. When they identified a problem, they first gather as much information as possible, discuss it, and only decide to take legal action if they deem it necessary. Usually, before going public, they engage directly with the other party. In Colorpool's case, it said that Nintendo pointed out the issue to them directly 2 years before the lawsuit was filed. Colorpool, on the other hand, initially argued that Nintendo patents were invalid because they covered ideas anyone could come up with. However, the damages, which is initially amounted to 4.4 billion yen, increased to 9.6 billion yen 3 years later, and Colorpool eventually settled by changing the game's mechanics and agreeing to pay 3.3 billion yen. In other words, the Palworld case is just beginning. If Pocketpair does not apologize and make corrections, Nintendo will likely increase the damages or file additional lawsuits. To be honest, if Palworld hadn't copied the visual style, it probably wouldn't have been sued. Nintendo is lenient when it comes to minor imitations, but once that line is crossed, they take aggressive action. Some may argue that it's strange for this to be a patent lawsuit instead of copyright one. It's true that large companies hold many patents for systems and technologies, which should be available for everyone. It's nearly impossible to check all of them and avoid them when making a game, especially for small companies or individuals, as the cost of that research is too high. Big game companies are aware of this. That's why they don't file lawsuits just because someone used a protective patented technology without permission. However, winning a copyright lawsuit based on similar artwork is much harder. Nintendo would need to prove that Pocketpair referenced Pokemon images while drawing their own or trained AI models on Pokemon data. Without this kind of evidence, they wouldn't win in court. So, they likely chose to start with the patent issue, where they were more certain of victory. In the end, the fact that large game companies hold a vast amount of technology patents isn't that fault of companies like Nintendo. It's an issue rooted in the social system and the law. A natural question that arises here is, where is the line between copying and being inspired by something? The boundary is unclear, and that's what makes these cases difficult to prosecute. Let's look at a recent example where Pokemon won a lawsuit. It's obvious to anyone that this was a case of copying. Now, let's take a look at Palworld's creatures. Indeed, there are many similarities, and the most people who feel that they resemble Pokemon. One illustrator evaluated the similarities in terms of silhouette, color scheme, and details, and there do seem to be many points where the designs overlap. Next, let's look at another game by Pocketpair. The earlier release, Craftopia, which is still in early access 4 years after its launch, not only copies the systems from The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, but also mimics its art style. It even incorporates the building mechanics of Fortnite. The enemy designs are also strikingly similar. Furthermore, their latest work resembles Hollow Knight in terms of art style, action, and even sound effects. From what I've observed, lawsuits tend to arise when the majority of people agree that the designs are similar. The game generates a significant amount of sales, and there's a lack of respect for the original work. On the flip side, if any of these elements are missing, legal action is less likely. Now, let's look at an example where blatant copying was permitted. This case started as a Pokemon mod. Nintendo's official stance was, as long as you create the game from scratch and not as a mod, it's fine. The creator took the time to develop it from the ground up, and the game is still available for purchase today. One of the reasons many Japanese gamers feel a sense of disdain towards Pocketpair stems from the CEO's remarks and the corporate culture which can be inferred from them. Let's take a look at some of the CEO's posts on X. In response to a post saying, "I played too much Pokemon," he replied, "I thought you disliked games on hardware." In another post, he commented, "AI has advanced so much that I can't tell which one is the real Pokemon anymore." This was a reaction to AI-generated content created by others, but if the AI used Pokemon images in its training, the resemblance is no surprise. Looking at the statements, it's clear that the CEO of Pocketpair doesn't respect other companies' games. In addition, in these two posts, he seems to support the fact that many knockoff Palworld games are being developed in China. This essentially validates the idea that Palworld itself imitates Pokemon and Dirk. These posts are from someone who claims to have provided illustrations for Palworld as a designer. He alleged that the CEO indirectly instructed him to copy Pokemon. For example, when showing rough sketches, the CEO said that things like, "Is this pile based on Snorlax?" It seems that every single time they discussed designs, Pokemon was brought up as a point of reference, and when he told the CEO that he didn't want a copy, he took a pay cut. The designer also mentioned that the experience at this company, his first job, left him afraid to work in the industry, and he is now living unemployed. Finally, he expressed deep regret for contributing to a copycat game and stated that he wants all the piles he worked on to be removed. I can't verify if this person was truly a designer on Palworld, but if his claims are true, it suggests that Pocketpair's work environment is toxic and that the game's copying of Pokemon was intentional. In a post from Palworld's official account. They described themselves as a small indie game development company and said, "We will do our best to ensure that indie developers are not discouraged or stifled in their creative ideas." In Japan, this is perceived as an attempt to manipulate public opinion, creating the impression that Nintendo is bullying a small company. It seems they are trying to shift the discussion from whether Palworld copied Pokemon to big corporation versus indie developer. While this strategy failed to resonate with the Japanese people, it appears that many overseas have fallen for this framing. I believe that if gamers and individual developers understand this issue correctly, indie games will not be stifled. The claim that Nintendo is crushing indie games is fundamentally flawed. Nintendo is actively promotes indie games through their showcases and responds thoughtfully to inquiries from individual developers. Taking on new challenges requires significant cost. Creating new systems and unique worlds is so hard, and there's always the risk a game won't sell after its release. If those who take these risks face losses even when they succeed, who will be willing to create something new? If it becomes preferable to imitate successful games rather than develop original ideas, the market will be flooded with similar games, leading to the disappearance of truly innovative works. Such a situation has already occurred in 1983, known in Japan as the Atari shock. The market was inundated with games that were imitated for quick profits, resulting in consumers abandoning video games altogether. Atari's market size plummeted from $3 billion to around $100 million. If imitation is allowed without any consequences, a similar fate could befall the modern gaming industry. We must learn from history. Additionally, what would a young child who loves Pokemon think if they saw Pokemons being forced into slavery or fighting with guns? How would they feel if Animal Crossing included elements of pillaging and killing? It's vital to recognize the foolishness of destroying the worlds developers have created. To summarize my opinion, Palworld was sued because of three factors: crossing the line in imitating Pokemon's art style, achieving a certain level of sales, and the lack of respect towards Pokemon. Additionally, Nintendo holds basic technology under patents not to monopolize them, but to prevent a situation where another company could claim those patents and prevent everyone else from using them. To avoid these kinds of complicated situations, two things are necessary: making it impossible to get patents on fundamental technologies and establishing alternative means to address cases where someone destroys another's art style or world. I'd like to clarify that I do not claim to know everything about the matters discussed in this video, and there may be incorrect information included. Of course, there's a lot of undisclosed information, and it's impossible to fully grasp the situation with complete accuracy. However, I believe there is value in sharing information that might not have been accessible to those who do not speak Japanese, which is why I made this video. I understand that discussing this topic may risk alienating some people overseas. However, I couldn't remain silent for the sake of the entire gaming industry. I know there will still be people who support Pocketpair even after watching this video. Please comment logically, not emotionally, about what you believe I'm wrong about.